So then we move to the last presentation in this panel, but not the least. Professor Boqinang Lin. Are you with us? Yeah, there.
Yes. Oh.
So Professor Boqinang Lin will talk about energy reform and carbon neutrality in China. So please, the floor is yours.
Professor Lin, maybe you can just click the file, PDF file on your desktop.
Looking for files.
Yeah, it's on the. Yeah.
Do you see it?
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, we see it.
Do you see it? Do you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, we can see it, yes.
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you. I will share some of my views on the carbon neutrality. I talk about challenges and opportunities of energy sector, and I will start from supply side and then go to demand side, and then we'll see that what is. This is China's energy structure. Comparing with other countries, you can see that the coal is a primary, is the major energy sources in China still. 15% is renewables, including hydro and wind and solar. So 85% is a fossil fuel. So think about it. China is going to achieve carbon neutral in about 40 years. That means that 85% of the fossil fuel energy system will have to be changed fundamentally. And it seems to me that time is very short. The coal is China's low carbon and clean energy transition requires not only reducing the share of the coal, but also controlling coal consumption. This is easy to say, but in fact, it's not easy to do. We're going to see in the next slide. Currently, what we are looking at is the coal reduction, controlling oil consumption, and increase natural gas are still the base feature of the short to medium term of fossil fuel development in China. Yes, reducing the coal, but we are increasing the oil and gas in the past few years, and it's likely to continue for the next few years. So right now, I think that good thing is that there's a consistency for climate change and environmental pollution control in China in terms of coal reduction. We're targeting the coal, and it's good for both, so that it makes it easier for implementing relevant policies. So that reducing the coal in China is actually there's a common agreement of we need to reduce the coal, but the problem is how we're going to reduce it. This is coal substitution in recent years, and I listed 2 to 3 years only. But in fact, this has been happening for the last 3 or 4 years. As you can see here, the coal in 2017 is 60%, and then go down to 59, go down to about 58%. So that means the share of the coal dropped by more than 1% per year in the past few years. But much of that coming from the increase in the oil and gas. Even though the renewables has been also increased, you can see that 13.8 in 2017, 14.3 in 2018, and then 15.3 in 2019. The cost of renewables has been falling sharply. The cost of solar has been reduced by, I think more than 90% in the last 10 years. But China's energy structure has not changed significantly. Now let's look at more closely for what's happening in China in terms of coal substitution. As you can see that here is I separated renewables into hydro, nuclear, wind, and solar. As we know that nuclear takes a long time to implement it, so I do not believe that nuclear will increase in large proportion in China. The hydro basically is relatively stable because of limited potential. So other renewables like wind and solar has been increased substantially, but in fact the proportion are still very small. If you look at wind and solar together, it's about 3.7%. It's still very small. Now you're looking at 58% of the coal and think about the carbon neutrality. In the past few years, we reduced 1% per year by trying very hard and achieve substantially, no question about it. But what if in the next 40 years, let's reduce 1% per year? That means by the end of 2060, you're still looking at 18% of the coal. And I really believe that because the energy system is still expanding, the coal at the time will be still enormous, okay? So looking at renewables, let's say that we are going to change fundamentally from the fossil fuel system into a renewable energy, clean energy system. As I mentioned earlier, nuclear in China will not have large potential because it's slow and has security issues. Etc. Hydro is basically limited. So wind and solar from 3.7% will have to increase to somewhere 60 to 70%. So there's a long way to go. Only when the proportion of renewables at the present time is large enough, it will be possible to meet the energy demand at the same time to replace the coal. Right now, we have not done that yet. The energy demand still has been met by at least other fossil fuel like oil and gas. The other half is coming from renewables. So at the current development stage, it seems to me important conditions for rapid coal substitution would be: one, energy demand has to be very low. Second is wind and solar have to rise very quickly. Now let's look at the numbers here. Here I give you the GDP, I give you the electricity demand, and will also give you the primary energy. Could China grow with a very low energy demand or not? That's the question we are looking into right now and try to looking into very seriously. There was indeed a very low energy and electricity demand in 2015. There was energy demand is about point something, and electricity is a little bit more than about 2 to 3%. But it has been picked up very quickly after the 2015, go up 2016, 2017. This year, we expect a low energy demand and electricity demand, but we don't know that next year it will pick up again or not. And most likely it will pick up again. So because of China's industrial structure and development stage, high quality economic growth does not automatically mean a low energy demand growth. In other words, you see the low, slow GDP growth, but you still see the energy demand jump up and down. It really does not reduce substantially. Now, why? The China's energy consumption, I think, is still production oriented. Let's look at coal. This is simply an input-output. If you look at this diagram closely, most of the coal is consumed by secondary industry, which is, and about 2/3 go for capital formation. That means you are building factories, infrastructures, office buildings, etc. So therefore, China's current energy consumption is still production oriented, not consumption oriented. just to give you an example, in 2018, commercial and residential electricity consumption is roughly 75% in the United States, but only about 30% in China. So in other words, most of energy consumption is still going to infrastructure development, building the factories, etc. Now, how will China stop? Let's see. There's a comparison of capital stock per capita in countries in 2018. As you can see, that China is still very small, comparing with the developed countries. As we all know that China is moving toward the developed countries, high-income developed countries in about 20 years. Many people forecast it might be earlier than that. But if that's the case, the capital stock will need to be built up and built up quickly. So therefore, I would say that this indicated that in the current development stage, China is still very difficult to have a very low energy demand growth. Now, the heavy industry, in my view, is the biggest challenge of the carbon neutrality in China. If you look at 2017, that heavy industry, which is only 5 or 6, cement, steel, aluminum, etc., consumed roughly about 62% of the energy in China. Today, I still imagine it's still more than 60%. You look at the electricity, 2019, 66% of electricity is consumed by industries. So that means that you're looking at the energy consumption and electricity consumption structure is mainly focused on industry. Well, which is understandable because China is a manufacturer country, okay, big country for manufacturing. Understandable. However, that have so much concentration on industry creates problems. The heavy industry is most sensitive to the changing economic condition, and because of its dominated sales, small fluctuation could actually have tremendous impact on energy and electricity demand, and which make it pretty difficult to forecast or to program, the carbon reduction, emission reduction, etc. For example, that industry just count a few: aluminum, steel, cement. China produces more than close to 55% of global total. Now, do China really need that much? In my view, no. I believe that China's export substantial amount of that in terms of goods and also in terms of the direct export of the steel, cement, and others. No, steel and aluminum. Cement is more or less more a local one. So the heavy industries are supported by fossil fuel right now. And in my view, they need to be reduced to a certain level, or be reallocated, such as move the heavy industry more closer to renewables, or even move somewhere else in other countries. Otherwise, it will be huge trouble for the China's carbon neutrality moving forward. Now, opportunities, clean coal development, we still need to have coal. As I mentioned, even if 1% reduction in about 40 years' time, you're still looking at roughly 18 to 20% of the energy still coal. Maybe we can do more than that, but let's use the past few years of the coal substitution. So the clean coal will need to be here. And in my view, that the clean coal included the cleaner and more efficient whole production chain. And other area of the non-electricity areas has a greater potential actually in the electricity area. That's about 50%. And that 50% is not as efficient as electricity production in China. Coal to oil and gas are based on environmental pollution transfer. It's just moving toward in some places which has low environmental costs and possibly energy security. China need to have certain capacity of coal to oil and coal to gas just for security purpose. So therefore, I do not believe that this is a big area for the Chinese coal to go in. And having said that, the CCUS seems to me is a must for China for the carbon neutrality. You're looking at huge, enormous lockup. China's electric system is the best one, I think, in the world. Average year is 12, and that you mean that it's a long way to go to really get those coal-fired power plant out of the system. So I think that the CCUS really require policy support now, not just a pilot testing, okay, need to be there. And to achieve economy of scale and faster technology advance. My view is that, if you look at solar power, 10 years ago, we never believed that the solar power cost was reduced by 90% 10 years later. We never believed that, but it is now. So I believe that if the government willing to support similar to the solar power for the CCUS, it could possibly reach the economy of scale and faster technology advance 10 years from now. And that means we look at big chance for the using the fossil fuel at the same time to achieve the carbon neutrality. Now that's another opportunity, of course, is clean energy. I think the main focus of the renewables in China right now is infrastructure. It's not really the generation cost for the wind and solar. It's compatible now with coal because of cost reduction. But the infrastructure is not there. It's so far away, and it is not economical to move those far away renewables all the way to the load center, and that has been a problem, and will continue to be an even bigger problem when the share of the wind and solar getting bigger. So the energy storage is also a must for China to really fundamentally to change the energy system. I think it's a vital part. If you look at the diagram here, it's in the center of it. Without storage, all of those, it just couldn't go too far, okay? The hydrogen is important for utilizing wind and solar because of the contrary distribution of renewable sources, potential, and energy consumption. It's so far away, okay? So the hydrogen is potentially possible for we to do it, to utilize the wind and solar and then transport the hydrogen all the way. Maybe it's easier, and it's not unstable. So maybe there's a chance there. Electricity vehicle is not just only for oil substitution and pollution reduction. In my view, it could be also an important tool for reducing the carbon China's electricity system cost, which is increasing and increasing very quickly. As I mentioned earlier, 75% of the US electricity was used in the commercial and residential. They're all peak. I think China is moving in that direction. It's 30%. Let's say we don't go to 75%, go to 40, 50%. That means the system cost will increase substantially. Now, where the electric vehicle come in for China, there's a lot of actors. For example, oil substitution. For example, energy security. For example, let's say that we go home and plug in at 12, get up at 6. Let's go enough for one day back and forth. But the assumption here is that we need to have a huge infrastructure development for everyone can charge electricity, charge electric vehicle at home. Now, if that is the case, that means we can utilize the electricity, which is a low, not a peak, and then use it, storage it at night, and then use it during the daytime when the electricity is expensive. So the system cost in China for electricity system will need to be reduced. And I think the electric vehicle will be a good one to balance it. Now, a few points. I think my time is up. Just a few more points I'd like to mention. You look at the energy triangle, you have economic growth, environmental sustainability, universal access to electricity and security. That means at any given points of time, the government always balances those three. Okay, so if anti-globalization become a trend after COVID-19, then I think you're looking at troubles for our difficulties for China, clean transition. You have to fight with everyone in terms of trade, and that would be created difficulties for carbon neutrality. I think that China is making a very good step to promote carbon neutrality, which most people believe is the most difficult among all countries which agree on the carbon neutrality targets, because it's an enormous and fossil fuel system. And also, the system is still expanding. So among all countries commit to the carbon neutrality, China will be the most difficult one. However, at the time of the global conflict, trade dispute, everything, China does provide a way for cooperation. This is fundamental. We are fighting for survival. We all have to work together. So let's hope that we do not have, like what happened in the past few years. China will have to fight day in and day out on the issues because of the other ideology or because of the trade. So this is, I think, that is a fundamental. We don't want to go that way. We are fighting for survivals, and we all need to stick together. The clean energy transition created economic and business opportunities, but also face political economic realities. That's always the case. You cannot avoid that. Okay. The important is that I really believe that common trade and pricing should be started very quickly to avoid part of those economic realities. Once you put the market there, we have a market system there, then it's pretty difficult to come back to say no or to put in something. The transition strategy need to be considered energy cost and energy security, or it will be difficult to implement in reality. The energy efficiency and conservation should have consistent policy support. We talk about it sometimes more focused, sometimes not, but that's not. Energy efficiency and energy conservation will be still the cheapest way. It's easy to say, but it's difficult to implement it. So therefore, we need to understand consumers' behavior, and we need to pay for transition, because somebody have to pay for that. It's a transition. It's a major transition. It's a costly transition. Somebody have to pay for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Some questions then for our panelists. I have a question for